Hey, this is Andrew Brown. In this video, we're going to take a look at a VPC endpoints. And so the idea is that it allows us to establish a connection just like an interface endpoint would, except it does not require any, I don't think it uses an ENI, but there's no additional cost to utilize it. So if we launch an EC2 instance, in order to actually test it, we'd have to be able to log into it, but we'd also have to deny it access to the internet. So we're ensuring that it is using the internal network as a guarantee. We could do that. We just did that with interface endpoint, and we could just take that one a bit further, but I don't want to do that. I want to try to find something that's a little bit easier. And so what I'm thinking is that maybe we can deploy a Lambda, because you can deploy them into VPC, and have it try to read what's in an S3 bucket. And I think that might be easier to do, because then all we have to do is tell the Lambda to log out what it sees in the bucket. And if that doesn't work, we can quickly iterate over that to find out. So let's make our way over to Lambda. We're going to do all of this, via the console, just because we have a lot of moving parts here. We're going to go ahead and create ourselves a new function. We have a lot of options for creating a function. I'm going to go with Ruby because it's super easy to use. And well, I guess you have the runtime for custom stuff, which is nice. But we'll just say my simple Lambda, or we could say this for VPC endpoint example. Probably be a better example. We do ARM or x68. If we have the option, choose ARM. It's a lot more efficient these days. And it doesn't seem to have any issues ever running on AWS, so we should do that. We don't need to enable function URL. We do need to enable VPC because we need to connect it to a very specific VPC. I think in this case, we should make a new VPC, because everything's all about VPCs, so let's make a new one. And we'll call this new VPC VPC endpoint example. And we'll stick with 10.0.0.16. That's fine. We want to have one AZ. We want to have no public subnets. We'll have one private subnet. And this actually can create for us a VPC endpoint, but let's leave that for us. So let's go ahead and say none, and we'll create this VPC. That will create that VPC, which is great. The next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and actually create the VPC endpoint. We can create this under endpoints, as this both creates interface endpoints and VPC endpoints. So, I mean, at least it should. And what I'm looking for here is, I keep saying VPC endpoint. We're creating a gateway endpoint, okay? A gateway endpoint. And I'm looking for that. I guess it would probably show up here under the type. So we go to type here, and then we filter by gateway. Here we have one for S3, and we will go ahead and choose our new VPC that we created. We'll associate it with our route table. We have two route tables here. I'm not sure why we have two, because if we chose our VPC, it should be choosing this one. I guess what it did is it created a route table for the specific private one, because that's how the wizard would create it. So I suppose that's fine, but I guess that's what we'll do, is we'll do that. We'll go down below here. Full access seems fine to me. We'll go ahead and create that endpoint. So now we have our VPC endpoint. Nothing else has to occur. It should just work. So now what we need to do is go back to our Lambda, and we'll go ahead and choose our new VPC here. Good. We will choose our subnet, which is the only one here. We recommend that you choose at least two subnets. We don't want two subnets because we're not worried about high availability. We'll choose the default security group, I suppose. Again, this doesn't go to the internet, so the default is totally fine. It's going to allow anything that is in that, anything outbound, so this should be fine. We'll go ahead and create this function. And what we're going to need is some Ruby code. So just say write an AWS Ruby Lambda that will print out the contents of a specific S3 bucket. So we'll go ahead and let that do that. While that's going, let's go ahead and create our S3 bucket that we're going to need. And we'll go ahead and create ourselves an S3 bucket. So say VPC or, well, gateway, it's gateway endpoints. We'll say gateway endpoints example. We'll go down below here and we will go and create that bucket. We might not get that name. Oh, we did. But, you know, change it to whatever you need to have as your name. And we'll go back over to ChatGPT. We'll take a look at the code. This is the latest. It looks correct to me. We'll go ahead and copy this. I'm going to go ahead and open this up just so that we have this example code. We can all share it together here. Just so that, you know, if you are utilizing it and you're getting different code, you're going to have less problems. So we'll go ahead and say new folder, and this will be for gateway endpoint. And I'll just make a new lambda.ruby.rb. Save that. Review it. So require that. Yes, that is correct. The Lambda handler is fine. We might need to change this based on what was configured, but that's fine. We would want to set up a client. I'm operating CA Central 1, so we can change that out as such. You know, we usually don't want to hard code values, but we're just going to in this case. When we cover Lambda, we'll actually do it a bit more proper, okay? We'll go ahead and paste that in here. We have our bucket name. Yeah, that's fine. Fetch a list of objects. That looks correct to me. If it's empty, no objects found, else print it out. The puts will actually get printed to our logs, so that is really good. In the case of errors, let's set the errors. The Lambda function needs to return a value even if it's not being used. So that is supposedly fine. That looks good to me. So I'm happy with this code. I'm going to go ahead and copy it. We're going to go back over to here. Well, before we do, let's just make sure that it's named correctly. Yes, it is. So that is fine. This one's not requiring the JSON. It is a built-in library, but let's just explicitly require it just in case. Because ChatGPT might not have known better. We'll go ahead and copy this. And we'll go back and paste this in. And I mean, that looks fine to me. Lambda function, Lambda handler. And yeah, this one's called Lambda function, Lambda handler. So as long as those match, then this is fine. So I would suspect this to work. The other thing is that we do need permission as well to actually do this, but we'll go ahead and upload this. This is fine. So we'll say deploy. But we do need to have a policy to actually access this stuff here. So what I'm looking for is our configuration. And under this, we have permissions and we have access to CloudWatch logs. That is not going to be enough for us. So we'll go ahead and edit this. And VPC endpoint example, role, etc. So we'll click into this because we're going to have to configure it to have S3 access. And in here, I'm going to just add an inline policy. I want to allow it to have access to S3. I want to allow it to list buckets. I always put that one in because half the time you need it. And we need get object. And so that should be sufficient, those two there. I'm going to click on the first one, and we have our bucket name over here, so I'll copy it in. That is our bucket name. We'll add the ARN. We'll go to this one, add the bucket name. It's any object. We'll add the ARN. We'll hit next. And I'm just going to say S3, simple S3 access. We'll go ahead and create that policy. I thought I was going to make it inline, but I guess it is. It just named it. And so this should allow us to read. So that was very important that we have that. I'm going to go back over to here. And so our function is deployed. It should be deployed within that VPC. If we go down below here, we can see that it is in the VPC. So that seems fine. So now my guess is that it should just work. So let's go ahead and actually trigger this. So trying to figure out how do we do this? It's been a while. We'll go back to our code. I just need to run it. I'm not sure why I can't remember. I mean, I guess it would just be test, right? Because if we're not doing anything else, it would be test. That's what it is. So here, we can set it any payload. It doesn't really matter because we're not actually going to do anything. So just say my test. And we'll go ahead and save that. And so now we'll just hit test. And so now it's going to execute it. And it says it listed the objects successfully. There are no objects. So, I mean, that makes sense. What we should do is try to add something here. So I need some kind of image. Go to ChatGPT and say, create me an image of Amazon Web Services on a skateboard. I don't know if we can do that. We'll give it a moment to generate an image. All right, so hopefully the wait was worth it, but here is our image. So kind of looks like Amazon, sure, why not? And so I'm gonna just go ahead and download that and rename the file so it's a little bit easier to work with here. Did it download the file? It says web. Oh, I hate WebPs. You know what? I don't care. I'm just gonna upload it as it is. It's a great name anyway. So we'll grab this and upload it. We'll say upload. And so what I want to do is go back, once it's uploaded, we'll go back over to here and we'll test it again. And so what I'm looking for is that object to get listed. And here it is, it's getting listed, so that's great. So the question is, what would happen if I removed the gateway endpoint? Because if the gateway endpoint is removed, this should fail, right? Because now we don't have direct access as we don't have an outbound connection to the internet. So what we'll do is go over to VPC. And what I'm looking for here is endpoints, right? And we'll go ahead and delete this endpoint. And we'll delete. So that is now deleted, which is great. We'll go ahead and test this again. And so the idea is that I expect it not to work. Okay, error message, timed out. Because there's no endpoint, there's no outbound connection, it can't hit the S3 public endpoint. And so that shows that we were able to do what we wanted to do. I'm going to go and just get rid of this file here, and we'll do some cleanup. So just delete the file. Usually it's faster to delete the single file. Maybe not, but we will go over to our buckets. And I want to delete this bucket. And then I want to go back to VPCs. And I'll go ahead and delete these VPCs. We cannot, oh, sorry. Yeah, we have to get rid of our Lambda first. So we'll go back over to Lambda. And we'll delete our Lambda. I'm not sure if that would be instantaneous because deleting a function permanently removes the code. Yes, yes, yes. I understand. I already have the code. It's saved. So that's good. We'll go back over to our VPCs. We'll go ahead and delete this VPC. The ENI is still in use. It shouldn't be. To delete it, we'll go back over. We'll give this a hard refresh and try this again. Delete. Delete. There we go. And we will see you in the next one. Ciao.